Good morning, everybody. This is Paul Davis from the Washington State Department of Health, and we welcome you to our Fresh Air Campus webinar series. And unfortunately, Molly Reese isn't able to join us today because of the government shutdown, so she asked me to sit in for her, and I'm honored to do that, but hope that she'll be back with us along with all of our federal partners soon. So we welcome you, and just as housekeeping stuff, I think many of you know how the webinars work, but to keep the noise down, we're in silent mode, but there certainly is a way for you to participate. So if you look at your screen on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, it has a place to send a message, and you can send a message, and that will be seen by everybody if it's in the public area. So that's a good way to communicate with each other as well as with us here that are hosting. So let me get started, and I'll see if I can advance the slides. Before I hand it over to our first presenter, I'd like to share some information about the Fresh Air Challenge, which is actually a first of its kind region-wide effort to encourage universities, community, vocational, and technical colleges to go smoke or tobacco free. A collaboration among the tobacco prevention programs here in Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, the Region 10 Office of Health and Human Services and its local partners. We're proud to be able to sponsor this. We've been thrilled at being able to work with each other and with all of the colleges in the area. In the short term, our goal is to have all the campuses of higher education in our 4-state region to sign on to the challenge and take meaningful steps towards smoke or tobacco-free policy. We really want all campuses to at least start the conversation, explore that process, what it might look like on their campus. In the long term, we hope that all the campuses in the region are 100% smoke or tobacco-free by 2016. To date, 10 campuses from across the region have signed onto the Fresh Air Campus Challenge and are actively working towards adopting and implementing a 100% smoke or tobacco-free campus policy. 9 additional campuses that have already implemented a smoke or tobacco-free campus policy have signed onto our challenge as mentors. And there are some additional campuses that are quietly talking amongst themselves to make sure that they got their ducks in a row before they officially sign on, but there certainly is additional interest among other campuses as well. So here you're looking at where you can actually sign up for the challenge, and you can see that's the websites, and we encourage folks to share this broadly. A large component of this challenge is also building up a network of campus and tobacco policy experts to share tools, materials, and lessons learned. One way of doing this is through a bi-monthly strategy sharing conference calls where advocates from across the region connect in real time with their peers and to pose questions and share information related to smoke or tobacco-free campus policy. Advance it again. Many of you might have heard of the Great American Smokeout. It happens every year on November 21st, and this year we're excited to announce that on the Great American Smokeout, the Fresh Air Campus Challenge is hosting a region-wide event to encourage all college campuses in Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington to go tobacco-free or smoke-free for at least that one day. Building on the Great American Smokeout's mission of helping people to quit for one day, this event will instead encourage colleges and universities to adopt a tobacco-free policy for one day. We hope that this one-day event will serve as a catalyst for all the campuses to discuss the benefits of going smoke and tobacco-free and to sign on to the Fresh Air Campus Challenge, which is working to get all of the colleges and universities in the region to go smoke or tobacco-free by 2016. To support students, faculty in participating in this event, an online toolkit will be available in the next week or so, and the toolkit will invite a set of creative materials that campuses can easily print themselves, a list of fun and innovative ways to raise awareness on campus and encourage ongoing dialogue. If you think that you and student advocates of your campus will be interested, feel free to email Molly, and you can also email me if you're not able to get through to her. And my email is paul.davis@doh.wa.gov, and I'm happy to work with any of you and get you connected to the correct state. We look forward to hearing from you soon and working together to get as many college campuses as possible signed on to the Go Tobacco Free for a Day. So now I'd like to introduce our first presenter, Liz Williams with the Americans for Non-Smokers' Right. worked with Liz and the Americans for Non-Smoker Rights for some time, and I'm really honored to have them with us today. Liz is a project manager for the American Non-Smokers Rights Foundation. She provides technical assistance, supports public health professionals and advocates in a variety of states on issues related to secondhand smoke and smoke-free policy change efforts. She conducts legislative analysis and tracking of pending statewide legislation. She manages the Protect Local Control website and has a focus on providing technical assistance and resources on emerging smoke-free issues such as multi-unit housing, college campuses, and outdoor public places. Her experience includes coordinating and presenting sessions on secondhand smoke preemption, multi-unit housing, and smoke-free policy change at trainings and conferences around the country. Liz, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Excellent. I'm going to switch my slides. Oh, excellent. Thank you. I'm so glad to participate today in this webinar. And as Paul said, at the A&R Foundation, we provide support to individuals and groups who are working to protect everybody's right to breathe smoke-free air, whether that is in indoor environments like workplaces and public places, but as well as environments like college campuses that has such wonderful activity now. And I'm really impressed how many campuses in Region 10 have joined this challenge to create smoke-free and tobacco-free environments, as well as the accomplishments that have already been achieved here in the Northwest. So today I'm going to share some recommendations on how to get started and gain support for your work to achieve a smoke-free or a tobacco-free campus. So why have a tobacco-free or smoke-free campus? There are many compelling reasons, which include changing the social norm around the acceptability of tobacco use and smoking in ways that harm other people, eliminating exposure to secondhand smoke, supporting tobacco-free lifestyles, including preventing the uptake of tobacco use by young people and helping people who want to quit, rejecting tobacco industry targeting and influence on campus, which can be quite significant, eliminating cigarette butt waste to have a cleaner and more environmentally friendly campus, and even reducing healthcare costs. So there's many motivating factors. Smoke-free and tobacco-free college campuses have really become a nationwide trend over, I'd say, the last 5 to 6 years. Currently, we are aware, those slides seem to be moving on there. Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Currently, we're aware of at least 1,178 campuses that are 100% smoke-free, of which at least 793, which is about two-thirds, are also 100% tobacco-free, which is very impressive. Illustrating how quickly schools have taken on this issue, in 2006, we knew of fewer than 40 smoke-free campuses, and by 2010, we knew of 446. So there's been a tremendous movement and momentum on the issue. We're always in the process of learning about new campus policies, and we're probably undercounting the numbers. So we would love your help by letting us know when your campus adopts a policy. So what's the best way for a campus to get started? Forming a task force or working group is always a good idea. Your task force forms the core of your broader campus-wide coalition, which helps steer the process and makes key decisions. You want it to be representative of the whole campus and involving your partners from the beginning is very wise because it helps to foster more meaningful collaboration and buy-in from them. Also, it's good to aim to find a few task force members who can be spokespeople, be the voice of the group, who are good messengers about why the policy change is needed, and choose people who resonate with your decision makers. Next, we recommend that you do your research. This includes determining the decision-making channels on campus and the process for changing policies. Also, conduct an environmental scan of your campus. Is there a current policy already in place addressing tobacco use to some degree? If so, where does it apply and how is it enforced? And what are those gaps in coverage that you need to close? Also, think about what the hot spots are where tobacco use occurs the most that will need some special attention. And also assess what resources and funding you have available. And conducting a campus-wide survey about tobacco use and attitudes among students, faculty, and staff is very helpful. This creates baseline data and identifies the issues and areas of concern that will need to be addressed. And understanding where people on campus currently stand will help you to create more targeted educational outreach to help you build support. Building partnerships throughout the campus community is at the heart of developing support for your desired policy. You need to reach out to all of the campus community stakeholders, from administration to faculty and staff, to the student leadership, as well as the student body and people like alumni too. There are so many different groups and individuals that might have interest in the issue, so it's good to spread a wide net. Be sure to sit down and talk with them, hear their interest and issues and concerns, and help them to understand how a tobacco-free campus or smoke-free campus is in their interest. As I mentioned, support can come from many angles and can include some unanticipated allies. Heard from multiple campuses that maintenance staff has been a really key ally because they spend an awful lot of time and resources on cleaning up cigarette butts, so they've been big champions. Also, it's good to reach out to the surrounding community around the campus. This includes the local government and your local health department, health partners like the American Cancer Society and the American Lung Association, as well as your campus neighbors and area businesses. It's important to discuss the desired scope of a new policy at the beginning of the process in order to reach a consensus about what you want to achieve. And it also allows you to communicate clearly with the campus community about what the desired changes are. It's also important to remember, I think, that adopting a policy is not your goal. Rather, the smoke-free or tobacco-free campus is your goal, and your policy is a tool to help achieve that goal. I want to mention 3 key considerations that are good to include in discussions. First is, do you want your campus to be smoke-free or do you want it to be tobacco-free? So a smoke-free campus, as you know, means eliminating secondhand smoke exposure, changing the social norm around smoking, discouraging people from starting to smoke, and supporting people who want to quit. The tobacco-free campus is more encompassing and has a broader impact since it's focusing on the tobacco use in addition to the exposure. So it also includes smokeless tobacco products like chew and snus, which are significant because they come in so many flavors and are so heavily marketed to young adults. These policies may also include restrictions on tobacco sales on campus, tobacco industry sponsorship of organizations and events, and tobacco industry funding of academic research. Second, will your policy apply to the whole campus or allow for designated areas for tobacco use? We very, very strongly recommend that it applies to the whole campus without any designated areas. And this does also reflect the majority of the policies we're now seeing campuses adopt. And also, if policies allow smoking areas, they don't qualify for our campus's list, which can be a motivating factor sometimes. We know that smoking areas or tobacco use areas aren't a wise idea because it's inconsistent with the goal of creating a healthy environment to live, work, and learn. It sends the message that tobacco use is acceptable, and it creates confusion about where and when people can use tobacco, which in turn creates a very big compliance challenge. It's much easier to implement and enforce and achieve compliance with a policy that is simple, strong, fair, because it applies uniformly across campus. We hear from a lot of campuses who are considering going completely smoke-free or tobacco-free because they already tried a partial policy with smoking areas that just did not work, and so they needed to come back and strengthen it. So it's better to start strong and avoid that headache. And third, what are your campus boundaries, and where exactly will your policy apply? This is especially important for urban campuses to discuss that might have city streets that run through the middle of campus. So think about if the college and city agencies can work together to enforce a smoke-free policy on those adjacent public sidewalks and city streets that cut through campus that the campus itself may not have jurisdiction over. Can there be some cooperation? You want your policy to be clear and for people to know what to expect when they come onto campus. So it's good to think about the boundaries ahead of time. And also, you want the campus to be a good neighbor to area businesses and residents. They do not want smokers congregating in front of their properties or on their front lawn. So it's very helpful to keep those neighbors engaged in the discussions to come up with some creative solutions. The University of Oregon has a nice map here of its campus at night that not only defines the campus and where their policy applies, but also points out walkways with lighting and emergency call boxes to address some safety concerns, which I think is a really nice idea. That was nicely done. Next, campus-wide education efforts are your key way to raise awareness and generate support for your goal. At A&R, our mantra is educate, educate, educate. The benefits of taking time to lay that foundation cannot be overestimated. You want to have a few key, consistent messages for your education outreach, like creating a healthier community for working, living, and learning. Some campuses have come up with really, nice, succinct messages. At the same time, you do want to shape your outreach to target various groups. For example, mentioning reducing healthcare costs might resonate well with administration, while support for quitting might appeal to staff, and talking about rejecting tobacco industry marketing and manipulation may resonate more with some student groups. Some other things to consider are you want to make sure you use social media since it has so many possibilities, but don't ignore traditional in-person outreach. That can really have an impact to have person-to-person meetings too. And be sure to take people's concerns seriously and answer their questions directly, which will help them feel more comfortable with the idea of a policy change and what it would mean for them. So all of your education efforts then translate into building more support, and widespread support from students and faculty and staff will help convince administrators that the policy is wanted and needed. Giving people things to do as part of the process helps reinforce their buy-in and makes them feel more engaged. It also helps turn people from passive supporters into active supporters who are making their voices heard. Some examples of ways to build and then demonstrate this growing support include sending letters and personal stories to administration. Someone on campus who might have asthma and hasn't been able to access a campus activity or their classes to the fullest, that can resonate well. Submitting articles, editorials, letters to the editor to various types of campus media, both print and social media. Pressure from alumni can be helpful, and endorsement from student and faculty organizations. I want to highlight the importance of demonstrating the support that your coalition has worked so hard to build. It's wonderful if the education outreach has hit a nerve and the campus community now really wants to become tobacco-free or smoke-free, but all that support won't do much good if the people who make the decision are not feeling that demand for change. So this support and demand is pressure, and all of the education and information that we use is persuasion. So persuasion, of course, is essential, but as coalitions, we tend to spend most of our time on this persuasion education component while undervaluing how important pressure is too. So typically a coalition spends about 80% of its time on persuasion and only 20% of its time on pressure, but we should try to turn that figure around a bit. And we can turn information into pressure by, for example, highlighting survey results at a campus rally in person, using data to encourage groups to adopt endorsements that are then hand-delivered to the administration, or doing a cigarette butt cleanup and bringing a big container of all those nasty butts to a meeting or hearing to have a visual component. So it's all about how you use that information to demonstrate support and demand for your policy change. A campus-wide campaign might take a year or more, and that's okay. It's better to take time to adequately educate and build support using some of these tactics rather than rushing forward too quickly without your adequate basis and support, and because you'll be much more effective if you take your time in order to help achieve your goal. Lastly, I want to mention that there are lots of excellent resources available about how to create a smoke-free or tobacco-free campus. There's too many to mention specifically right now, but on our website at no-smoke.org, our colleges and universities page has links to many of these resources, which includes guidance from health groups, from college organizations, as well as individual colleges and universities that have compiled their experiences and lessons learned. And several of the things that I've discussed today are included in our tip sheet called Steps for Enacting a Smoke-Free College Campus. So we all want to support your efforts and make sure you have what you need to be successful. So please do feel free to visit our site or contact us directly for assistance. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Liz. I see that there are some questions that I could have just probably anticipated being there. A couple people asking about e-cigarettes and how e-cigarettes are worked into this. And Liz, let me start with you and ask you if you have any suggestions about how to address e-cigarettes in your policy.
Sure. Many more campuses are now including e-cigarettes in their policies, especially if they're addressing, a tobacco-free policy, because it's really looking at the issue of, having a healthier campus without the, without that nicotine addiction component. And, whether it's a college campus or whether it's a workplace, from our organization, our perspective is that there's so much unknown about these products right now that it's better to err on the side of caution. And someday down the line, if they are proven to be, safe to the user and the non-user that is exposed to vapor, then it might be appropriate to permit them. But until we have information, right, we err on the side of making sure they're included in policies because they're just right now such an unregulated and unknown product.
Very good. So let me give some perspective from the state of Washington. I don't know if we've got folks from the other states on how it's addressed in our smoking in public places law. And the answer is that they are not really covered under the smoking in public places law because it's not considered to be smoking. So you want to think about, if you're wanting to cover e-cigarettes, what kind of language you want to have to cover that, because if you're just saying smoking, then it probably doesn't cover the use of vaporizing products, which e-cigarettes are. You might want to have some specific language that draws that out. In terms of safety and efficacy of the things, Liz is exactly right. We don't know what are in these things, and we frankly don't know what the public health burden is at this point. The e-cigarette companies have not been willing to go through an FDA compliance to show safety and efficacy of their product. They can't advertise themselves as cessation products because of that, but they can actually market themselves as alternative to tobacco products without hardly any regulation at all. So it may be that they have a lower public health burden, but we've kind of been through this with the light cigarette thing, so I think many of us are a bit wary, especially now that we have big tobacco companies that are entering into the markets, and the research is showing that they'll continue to have a large growth in their product sales over the next several years. So that's kind of our perspective from Washington State, and I would certainly invite the other presenters to give their perspective as they present. Anything else you would say, Liz?
Just in terms of the question regarding language, and you're mentioning that you need to specifically craft language to include them. On our website, we do now offer model policy language for college campus policies, whether both a smoke-free version and a tobacco-free version, and in both we do include language defining an e-cigarette and including that, if that's something that would be useful to look at that language example on our website.
So thank you, everybody, for asking the questions, and thank you, Liz, for taking time to talk to us about that. So let's move on to the next slide. Next, from the from Eastern Oregon University, we have Kylie Landman. Kylie has been the wellness coordinator at the Student Health Center at EOU since fall of 2011. Her background includes a bachelor's degree from Oregon State University in public health with a focus on health promotion and dietetics. So may I just say, go Beavs.
Thank you, Paul. Hi, everyone. So at the bottom, I included part of our little logo for the health of it, just as a little fun. So we had already been talking about the possibility of creating a tobacco-free policy before Governor Kitzhaber came out with the executive order requiring all state properties to at least have a plan by 2014. So once that came out, though, that kind of gave us a little bit more of a push to be able to actually get things moving along. Otherwise, it may have taken quite a bit longer. So last fall, we had met with our president and discussed the executive order, and he really preferred that we had a policy in place well before we were required to. So the decision was that let's try and get something going by this fall. So let's see here. And also, I mean, overall, we, of course, want to have a healthy environment for our students, for visitors, faculty and staff, excuse me. And also within Oregon, we know that tobacco use is a problem, so that was just another push to kind of get something going. I will note that we were lucky enough to have some OHSU nursing students who were doing some clinical work with us at the Student Health Center, and they were able to do a lot of research for us last fall and also the spring prior, and that saved myself and the rest of us quite a bit of time. So they really helped us out there. So go to the next slide here. So as far as the actual policy itself, we decided on September 15th, 2013, and that date was decided on because we'd thrown around maybe August 1st, because that's when some of our fall athletes are returning to campus. But the only problem with that is there wouldn't really be any resources for students or anyone else on campus because the Student Health Center is closed over the summer. So we had to look at some other dates, and September 15th was decided on because that's a week before all of our students were going to be returning if they were going to be living on campus. So we went with September 15th. Our policy includes cigarettes, cigars, pipes, smokeless tobacco, any other tobacco or related product, including but not limited to e-cigarettes, and also betel nut. And betel nut is something that some of our Pacific Islander students we've noticed use on campus, and they chew it, so it's similar to smokeless tobacco use. The behavior is the same. There's some research suggesting that it's really not healthy for you. It has stimulant effects. So we really wanted to include that with our policy just to cover that, because you would see kind of little chew wads, if you will, that were spit out around campus. And so, again, it was just as unsightly as smokeless tobacco being spit out around campus. So we really wanted to be inclusive and put that in as well. And we worked with our multicultural center to really get their support, and they were totally on board, so that was a big help. Smokeless tobacco is our most prevalent, really, tobacco problem. We are a pretty rural campus, pretty rural community, and that, of course, makes that tobacco use a little harder to monitor. You can't just be looking around and seeing if anyone has a little something in their lip sticking out, or but on the other hand, we did hear a lot from students and faculty that some students would have like a Gatorade bottle that they were spitting into during class, which was also very unsightly. So we really wanted to try to monitor what we can with that and really try to change that behavior as well. The policy also states that tobacco is prohibited, of course, in the buildings, which already was a policy, but in all outside property or grounds controlled, leased, or shared by Eastern Oregon University, and that includes our parking lots, inside of vehicles, personal vehicles, and also on our sidewalks. The sidewalks that are on the perimeter of our campus are a part of our property, not the city's. And then as far as kind of the implementation process, as I said, we got this started only last fall, so we had less than a year to push this through. So we kind of started out with a timeline and just kind of looking at what can we get accomplished and when, and by September 15th, what should be done. For example, we had worked with facilities to make sure that all of the smoking receptacles were removed by September 15th, and also that we had little door decals. Those are, I think, still getting put up, but I mean, that was all starting by September 15th. Let's see here. Our task force we put together, it's comprised of 18 different people, so we really looked for a good, diverse crowd. And then we kind of broke that down into 2 separate committees to focus on 2 different areas. And then our president, we really wanted him to have an announcement. There is a kind of a listserv for just staff, faculty, and he had created a message that was sent out to all of them to let everyone know. I think it was early last spring, just to let everybody know what was going on. Students also got a message sent out to them. We really had to work on the policy development and approval. Creating the policy wasn't too difficult, but the approval process, to get any policy put in place and approved by all the appropriate areas, that can definitely take some time. But it did go really smooth for us, I will say that. Of course, we needed to figure out how are we going to educate everyone, how are we going to make sure that everyone's aware of our policy. So we really tried to think of any of, media on campus, or again, like sending the emails to the students, staff, faculty, having promotional items and just being visible at campus, like health fairs, things like that, where we could really push the message out. And University of Oregon shared a lot of materials with us, which was such a help. They were just really, really willing to send us everything that they had used, and we even borrowed some of their messaging with their permission, of course, which was incredible for us to use. And as far as our branding, if you can see the little white balls, those are stress balls that we had made that says the EOU kicks butt and chew too. And then those ones say for the health of it. And then on the back of them, they have the Tobacco-Free Campus Fall 2013, and that's the same message that is on those black T-shirts. Funding, though, was something that in the beginning we were all kind of trying to scramble to figure out how we were going to get some amount of money to purchase promotional items, try and figure out ways to make up quit kits and what we could put in there. So luckily, the Center for Human Development, which is our local public health department, their tobacco prevention program was able to give us some money to help us out, which really saved us. So big thanks to them. As far as the compliance, our president was really focused on a soft approach. He didn't want it to be a punitive thing. He really didn't want, to seem like we were just, marching around, patrolling all of campus, just trying to find everybody and, kind of have a more negative approach. We really wanted to be educational and supportive of anybody who does use tobacco and maybe if they want to quit. So we really just wanted to communicate this healthy campus kind of message and kind of explain where this is coming from, and that it wasn't only because of an executive order. That just kind of helped push us along. And we really wanted to make sure that not only is a policy in place, but that the expectation is that we will actually, abide by that policy, and that our campus as a whole will support that policy. There, can be there has been other places that have put a policy in place, but they may not enforce it, or they might just, really not keep consistent with kind of the enforcement of it. So we just really wanted to make sure that here's the policy, we're expecting everyone to abide by it. So kind of the recommendations we've talked to everyone about, if you are comfortable and you see someone using tobacco on campus, if you just casually want to approach them and say, hey, did you know we're a tobacco-free campus now? And then we're going to have some little cards that have some information about our policy, and then also some quitting resources too that people can hand out if they don't want to have that much of a verbal interaction. And then with anyone, whether it's staff, faculty, or students, if there's anyone that is repeatedly not abiding by the policy, then they can be reported to their supervisor, if it's staff, faculty, to their supervisor, or our conduct system if they're students. So there is a way to kind of, in a sense, punish, but I don't like to use that word, anyone who is repeatedly just not following the policy at all. So again, that just follows any other EOU policy with students, staff, faculty. Let's see. And in, an extreme case, if we have maybe visitors on campus and they're being a little bit belligerent and they just absolutely won't comply, we luckily have our city police department right across the street. And if need be, we could call them over and someone could be charged with trespassing. Again, that's on the extreme end. So kind of where we're at right now, the policy, like I said, was enacted September 15th. Our classes started September 30th. And then our permanent signage is still finishing getting put up. So that has created some confusion. A reminder was sent out to staff and faculty, and also our contracted entities here on campus. And that's something that I would really like to point out, that if you have some other groups within your campus, like for example, we have OHSU School of Nursing, ODS, we have the OSU Ag program, Aramark does our dining services, we have a construction company doing a lot of remodeling in some areas on campus right now. So we really had to make sure that we communicated this to all of them, because they might feel like maybe this policy wouldn't apply to them. So we made sure to contact all of them and let them know what was going on. And we haven't had any negative feedback, so that's a plus. We also are sending out a neighborhood letter just to inform, but also let any surrounding neighbors kind of know that if they do see any problems, to please let us know, just so we're aware of what's going on. Like I said, smokeless tobacco is more prevalent than cigarettes on campus, so we don't anticipate we're going to have large groups of people just walking into someone's lawn or something and just, dumping their cigarette butts. So hopefully that won't happen, but just in case, we wanted to let the surrounding community know that we really appreciate them and that we want to take care of them if anything's going on. Res Life had just mentioned that some students asked about smoking hookah in their rooms, so that's something we're kind of watching a little bit. International students, that's another point I want to make, is that sometimes the transition for international students can be really difficult, especially if they're tobacco users, but if they're coming from a place where it's socially acceptable and normal to use tobacco inside, outside, wherever. So we made sure that we discussed that with international students before classes started. For us, compliance issues, we're just directing that to security. Our local high school plays their football games at our football stadium, and so we made sure to communicate with them the policy, and that they will be able to put that information out in a parent newsletter, which really helps. And kind of just to finish up here, I didn't put our website, but we created a separate website for our tobacco policy. We're still adding to it. It's a little meek right now, but that website is eou.edu/tobacco-free, and tobacco-free is just one word. And also, if you have some questions after the webinar, please feel free to email me. I'm happy to help anyone else out. We had a lot of help in our process, so I'd like to do the same. Looks like maybe we have some questions. So I hadn't found any examples of, or at least yet, any little kind of cards to hand out. Not with everything that we were hoping to put on there, so that's something we were just going to have to create ourselves. And for the other question, so we, let's see here, enforcement cards. We, like for us, our quit kits, we were really hoping to be able to add in tobacco cessation products, specifically nicotine replacement products. That's still kind of been a bit of a funding issue for us. So I'm not sure if we'll really be able to do that, but as far as like our quit kits, with some of the funding we did get, we include some little fidget toys and toothpicks and gum, and we put some like spearmint chapstick in there, flavored toothpicks, just some kind of things that people can kind of keep their hands busy. We also have like Smoke-Free Oregon cards in there that they can call the quit line. But I think that's pretty much all of it.
Great. And I think they can get NRT through your quit line in Oregon. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're better off than we are here in Washington State, where we don't have NRT as part of our quit line. And I don't know about Idaho and Alaska, but our next presenters can tell about Idaho, and I'm not sure about Alaska. So thank you so much, Kylie, for presenting. And
thank you.
Appreciate everybody else being able to ask the insightful questions. Those are great questions. So Joy from Britt says that NRT is available to all adults in Alaska. So Washington State would be the place that I think you'd have the hardest problem getting NRT gum or patch. I'm fading in and out, so let me talk better. So let me go forward to our next presenters. Shannon Hasselhun is the Health Education Coordinator at the University of Idaho campus and is advisor for our policy project. She's been in health education for 6 years as a certified tobacco treatment specialist from the Mayo Clinic for the past 5 years, providing individual and group tobacco dependence counseling and education and advocating for policies that support those who are tobacco-free. Daniel Trotbetter is a senior at the University of Idaho, and he's currently working on his degree with a 360-hour internship with the Vandal Health Education. Daniel is a student leader for the Smoke-Free for University of Idaho, a student-led group working towards changing tobacco policy on campus. He's a certified peer health educator and will hopefully continue after graduation with a job in some aspect of public health. So, folks, take it away.
Good morning. Can everybody hear us?
Shannon,
Yeah.
Can you see the slides now?
No, I can't.
Okay.
We are having some technical difficulties, but we have slides in front of us, and we know their numbers, and so we can actually advance them.
Well, let me just try closing them and opening them again, and
Okay.
let me know if that works.
While you're doing that, I will mention that Idaho Quit Line does provide nicotine replacement therapy. I believe that it's a 4-week supply at this point. Some of the people on the line might be able to answer that or confirm that, but I know that it is provided.
Can you see the slides now?
Nope. But that's okay. Can everyone else see the slides? You haven't had any other complaints, is that right?
I'm seeing them.
Okay,
So
then we're just going to move forward, and, we can see them now. They just popped up.
Okay, great.
So we are really excited about the opportunity to present our journey toward changing the tobacco policy on the UI campus. We come at this from a very unique perspective and a very different perspective from what Kylie just presented. Our entire effort has been student-initiated and student-led, and we really started from scratch, and in the last year we've made large strides towards our ultimate goal of becoming a smoke-free campus. We're still in the process of changing the actual policy, but I think we have some valuable tips to share today, and to kind of show that a grassroots approach to policy change is possible. And even without administration support in the beginning, you should still begin the process and work towards gaining those supporters along the way. This morning I'm going to tell you a little bit about our campus and our current policy, and then I'll pass it over to Daniel, and he'll kind of cover the process, and then I'll tie it up at the end with some lessons learned. So the University of Idaho main campus is located in Moscow, Idaho, and our current enrollment is just under 12,500 students. Nearly 10,000 of those are full-time students. And we have 5 campuses across the state of Idaho that would be affected by this policy. And it's worth noting that one of our campuses, our Idaho Falls campus, is already smoke-free because their facilities are located on Idaho State University property, and they are mandated to follow their policy. So our current policy is the typical no smoking within 25 feet of doors or air intakes, and we definitely have some issues with enforcement and compliance of that policy. Especially as the weather gets colder, the 25-foot distance tends to shrink toward the doorways. And certain buildings on our campus, including our commons, have air intakes placed around the building where many people gather. And so smoke is pulled into the buildings that way, and we've had some complaints. Our campus tobacco litter is also an issue. We have high litter, especially along main walkways, in landscaping, outside of entryways into the buildings, and around the residence halls. So now I'm going to turn it over to Daniel, and he's going to talk about the rationale to pursue a policy change on our campus and really how his student group initiated the process.
All right, so when we first started this program, we wanted to look at why it is time for the University of Idaho to go smoke-free. So we want to protect people from unwanted and involuntary exposure to passive smoke, particularly those with pre-existing health conditions. And we are also currently the only remaining college or university in the state of Idaho that does not have a smoke-free or tobacco-free policy. We wanted to promote cessation and create a supportive environment for those trying to quit cigarette use while creating a cleaner learning and working environment, and also decrease cost and personal resources related to tobacco litter. Our campus facilities department did a study on the cost of tobacco litter and found that it cost the university 5 cents for every cigarette butt that they pick up off the ground. We want to decrease initiation of smoking among students. The CDC states that more than 80% of smokers born after 1930 begin smoking regularly by the age of 21. So that's right in our target age group. And overall, we want to promote tobacco-free lifestyles as a social and health norm here on campus. So in starting to create the initiative for a smoke-free campus, we started as a class project. There was 4 of us students. It was a 400-level public health-based class that focused on policy change as part of our degree. And each class assignment went on the same path as the tobacco policy change. And with each assignment or lecture, we learned more and more about policy change and putting our education to use on this project. So our first assignment was to look at a needs assessment format. We looked at the current state of the campus and evaluated the need for policy change. With that, we started forming allies and assembling our task force. So we found members from different groups and organizations on campus that shared the same ideas on the tobacco policy, and we kept in contact with them and kept them in the loop along the way. We researched methods to create a policy change, so we thought out how to change a policy on campus that's also correlated with the class we were taking. Throughout our program, we met with several campus committees, and we had the opportunity to present to several committees and mainly just be there to ask questions. We received pushback from a few different organizations. Initially, our student body government did not want to get involved, and several other groups or people from campus voiced their concerns. This kind of helped us in a way. It created a buzz on campus and got more and more people talking. But with that, the rumor mill started, and we heard all sorts of statements regarding the policy change. Some people thought it was happening the next week. Some said your tuition would be increased, and several other statements were released that were false. Throughout the program, we stayed on the high road. We had several groups attack our efforts or make negative comments on our Facebook page we created, but we never addressed this negativity. We were there to answer questions and explain the efforts and our progress, but we were not wanting to start a debate. Throughout our program, we used the CDC, Health and Human Services, and the ACHA to back our efforts, and we used specific quotes from each organization to kind of back our program. So the ACHA further recognizes that environmental tobacco smoke has been classified as a Class A carcinogen, and that there is no safe level of exposure to environmental tobacco smoke. And the CDC states that policies establishing smoke-free environments are the most effective way to reduce exposure to secondhand smoke. So when we started creating awareness of our program on campus, we started with table events on campus and to promote our online survey, and our survey we were going to distribute in the following weeks. So we spoke to several classes. We hung posters and educational information on campus about the survey, and we used our speech wall on campus to let students voice their opinions. Our speech wall is a wall in our main commons area that every week has a different interactive aspect of information or events for the students to participate in. And we also started a Facebook page. On the Facebook page, we got a lot of negative comments, but also a lot of positive comments, and I think overall it was just a good place for students to have a voice on this policy change. So then we distributed our survey. So our survey administration, we had in-person surveys. We collected them by the student group at the Student Rec Center. We went to several different classrooms, not just in our major, but in every sort of major. And then we also sent out packets of surveys to every resident assistant to conduct at floor meetings at the dorms. The survey was available online for 1 week in the end of November, and we asked that the participants verify that they were over the age of 18, that they were a member of the University of Idaho community, and that they only took the survey once. The online survey was also marketed through flat screen ads in the rec center, in the commons. We placed a banner in the commons, and we hung several posters around campus, and also just through word of mouth. So after we got our results back from the survey, there was 985 people completed the survey, mostly students. After the survey was completed, we were asked why there were so many students. And from the beginning, we were under the understanding that to create a policy change on campus, it had to be student-supported, so we mostly focused on getting those surveys from students. So the first question on the survey was, would you support a policy banning all forms of tobacco on UI campus? In support of that was 51%, and 49% was not in support of that. Our second question, would you support a policy banning just smoking on the UI campus? In support of that was 62%, and not in support was 38%. So with those results, we chose to go forward with a smoking ban versus a tobacco ban. So we had a few opportunities to present our survey findings. The first one was to ASUI, which is our student government, and they asked us to come speak at the meeting, and this was the government that was initially against our program and did not want to get involved. But after our survey results and after our presentation, they passed a resolution with a 13-2 vote to keep our tobacco policy change on the schedule. We did an interview with the student newspaper to discuss our survey findings. We also were invited to present to the Safety and Loss Control Committee, which is an extension of our Faculty Senate and would ultimately be the faculty committee to oversee this policy change. We presented to the Staff Affairs Committee, and we also have an upcoming open forum where students, faculty, and staff will be able to ask questions and hold a conversation about a possible policy change. And finally, in the future, we are hoping to present to Faculty Senate, which would be the deciding factor on if this policy would get passed or not. So after our survey, many people were skeptical of our results, including ASUI, so they decided to have their own survey, which was included in their presidential election. Although they received more votes back, the figures were about the same, which only reconfirmed our survey results. So now I'll hand it back to Shannon to talk about our supporters and our path forward on this project.
All right, so we actually began this process with some key supporters in our community or on our campus, one of them being our public health district. And we have a representative who has been vital in providing guidance as well as posters and educational materials for tabling and raising awareness. And she's also been able to help us understand that funding is available for signage through Project Filter once we actually implement a new policy. We also have representatives from our student health services, and our city mayor has been very supportive and written letters of support for our school newspaper. Our director of operations in the Commons and Student Union and our director of facilities are definitely on board, and these are the folks that deal with the effects of the non-compliance and the litter firsthand. We have our Sustainability Center on board with us, as well as some key faculty from our Movement Sciences Department, where this student group was doing their project. And we also have our Wellness Director from our Student Rec Center as a supporter. And then through our efforts throughout the year, we were able to gain support of the student government, as Daniel said, and we're now working to gain full support of staff affairs and faculty senate as we move forward. So currently our path forward is to be part of a panel discussion facilitated by the Safety and Loss Control Committee this semester. And from there, we will go and present to Faculty Senate. And we're going to ask them to move forward with adopting a smoke-free campus policy with a 2-year implementation date. And we want them to form a committee to address enforcement, signage, communication, and policy language. We have done a lot of work in this area, but we know that this needs to be a university commitment. And so we think that the Safety and Loss Control Committee fits very well as the committee to take this on, and we will be involved in any way that we can. Through our process and experience, I wanted to share a few lessons learned with you. First of all, separating advocating and educating from data collection is really important. Because we are a group that we're working toward policy change and improving tobacco policy and the health of our campus, it was hard to do those two things together, and we had some pushback from our survey as it may have come across bias. So we would have separated those out by a semester if we could do it over again. Secondly, find out how policies are changed on your campus. Policy change on every campus is different, and they can fall under different categories, so it's important to do your research to find out how your institution functions so you can go through the proper channels. And we actually started out doing this, and we were kind of given a roadmap, but that roadmap has changed several times throughout our process, and so it's more complicated than you might think. And so it's good to know what direction you're going before you get started. Identify your allies and your enemies. Though we did have many supporters, those who were not in support were much more vocal. It's important for us to recognize which committees or organizations were on our side and who wasn't, so that we could either work to gain support or be ready to answer tough questions that came up. Find a way to communicate your purpose and your progress each step along the way. When we started work on this project, we were collecting the information that we needed. We're making progress, but as we did that, as Daniel said, the rumors started flying. And so it's really important for us to be constantly communicating with folks so they knew what was going on. And then finally, stay positive and weather the storms. As I said, the non-supporters tend to be louder than the supporters, and it's important to keep your eye on the prize and not get discouraged. With this being a student-led effort, I was actually surprised at how other students and even staff and faculty members took it as a personal attack on their rights and showed negativity towards the student group and others working on the project. And then as a final lessons learned, we tried to leverage the meaning of many of the existing slogans and campaigns on the University of Idaho campus. We want to focus on having policies that support the messages that we present. I Got Your Back is our campaign to promote vandals taking care of each other. Inspiring Futures is a university-wide fundraising campaign. A Legacy of Leading is our tagline on our main logo. And our housing office says, Live More, Learn More. So we feel like adopting a policy that protects the health of our students and promotes lifelong health would show a commitment from our university that we believe in our messages, and that we walk the walk. So in closing today, we wish you all luck with your efforts to improve the tobacco policy on your campuses. We will keep pushing forward here, and we're excited to be successful with our goal of becoming a smoke-free campus. It is an awesome legacy that this student group will leave for future vandals, and we're very proud of them for that. And really, if we can assist you in any way, we are happy to share, so please feel free to contact us at our health education office, and our information is on the screen. And it looks like we have a few questions that I will address real quickly. The first one is on the facility study. Our director of facilities actually conducted a study. This was a couple years ago, and he had a couple staff. I'm not sure every step of it, but he had a couple staff calculate their time specifically dedicated toward picking up cigarette litter, and they worked it into a dollar figure. And so they have used that in several different campaigns to try to move forward with this policy. And I would be happy to get that for anyone from our facilities director and pass along to you. And then our survey questions for our campus-wide survey, we would also be happy to provide. So send us an email. We'll ship anything along to you.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for participating. I know we're a minute past, and you're probably like me that you're supposed to be running to your next meeting. But we very much appreciate your participation and your enthusiastic questions and answers. And we hope everybody will stay in touch and connect as necessary to move us forward. Unlike many problems, this one we know what the solution is, and what we're doing is a solution to the leading cause of disease and death in our country. So thank you, everybody, and we'll talk to you all soon. Bye.